Hello, I'm Robert Emmett Hernan, head of BlueStack Productions, Inc., the publisher of Irish Environment, an electronic resource for environmental matters on the island of Ireland. We're here today for another in our series of conversations on environmental matters, and today I'm very pleased to be here in Belfast with Patricia Mackey from Sustainable Northern Ireland. Patricia, you're very welcome.
Thank you.
Patricia, I wonder if you could tell the audience what is Sustainable Northern Ireland and what it is that you do.
Sustainable Northern Ireland, we are a non-government organisation that our name is a very good indicator of what we do. Everything that we do is in relation to sustainable development, about making it better understood, about getting it properly integrated throughout people's lives and how government operates in Northern Ireland. Most of the work that we actually would do would tend to be with local government and getting them to embed the principles of sustainable development within their activities and work programmes.
And what is the status of the Northern Ireland government? The devolved administration published the Sustainable Development Strategy over the last couple of years, and recently this year published the Sustainable Development Implementation Plan. What is the status of sustainable development within the government here?
Well, in the last year, it's actually been relatively positive in that we finally do have a strategy that the current administration has actually signed up to, and it didn't take that long to get an implementation plan together. At the minute, they are looking at developing some guidance on the sustainable development duty that is been enforced since the first Sustainable Development Strategy was published in 2006, but we've never actually had any proper guidance on what that means. So at the minute, that's what the department with responsibility for sustainable development is working on. And the other thing that they're working on at the minute is developing some indicators for how we can actually measure Northern Ireland progress towards sustainable development, which again should be really useful because it'll hopefully help make it a lot more meaningful.
Yeah, one of the criticisms when the strategy came out in 2009, 2010 was that it was very vague and there was very little concrete action, and that's still a quality somewhat, isn't it?
We would still be very much concerned about the lack of really strong measurable targets, because even the implementation plan that has just come out, it's a 4-year document, whereas a lot of the targets that Sustainable Northern Ireland feel are needed, go beyond the sort of the 4-year cycle. For example, targets on climate change and carbon emissions, you're talking that you need big targets for like 2020, 2050 to actually see what type of progress we should be aiming towards making.
Okay. Now, you do work, as I understand, with a lot of different stakeholder groups, governments, individuals, but you mentioned the district governments, the district councils, and that's really a focus for your work. And it seems that that's one of the things you're doing is giving some concrete reality to sustainable development. I wonder if you could tell the audience what it is you're doing with the local governments.
Well, whenever Sustainable Development, or LA21, was first sort of bandied about just after the Earth Summit in '92, it was really actually the local government or the district councils in Northern Ireland that I suppose were the first ones to rise to the challenge and started to do sustainable development type projects. Now, because it took so long for government to get any strategy developed, a lot of that kind of fell by the wayside a little bit, and a lot of the councils would have said that they're not really doing anything for sustainable development. Even whenever the statutory duty came about, saying that all public authorities have to have regard for sustainable development, many of them were telling me that until they knew what that meant, that they really weren't actively going to try and do anything for sustainable development. Now, I'm actually from a local government background, so have quite a good bit of knowledge about what it is that councils actually do. So I knew that a lot of the things that they're actually doing are 100% relevant to sustainable development. It's just that because people still perceive sustainable development as being an environmental initiative, that often they think that they're not doing anything. So I decided that what we needed to do was we needed to develop a measurement tool that would actually, one, help identify what sustainable development looked like within a local authority, but also that did actually help them show that they were doing something. So this is where the idea of the Sustainability Audit Matrix, or the SAM, came up with, and we've been running that quite successfully in about 14 of the councils now.
And could you tell the audience what the Sustainable Audit Matrix is?
Yes, it's quite a complicated concept, but actually works quite well on the ground. It's essentially a self-assessment tool which allows the councils to measure their performance across 3 different themes. So there's a strategic aspect to it, there's an internal operational aspect to it, and then there's an external measurement of what it is that councils actually do. And within that there's different criteria that they can try and assess their performance against. So whereas traditionally most people would have viewed sustainable development as things like measuring energy use, measuring waste use, this is actually allowing them to factor in things like the leisure services that they provide, because obviously healthier people equals healthier lifestyles, equals more sustainable society. But it also looks at things like arts and culture, the building control, environmental health, corporate management, a whole range of different aspects.
And how give us an example of one of the self-assessment tools or the criteria they would use for judging their performance on one of those criteria.
Okay, in terms of looking at how they engage with their local stakeholders, because that is essentially why councils are there, is actually to serve the rate. But it's to serve the ratepayers, it's to make their lives better. And within their corporate plans, a lot of the things that they say is that they are there to actually improve quality of life. So within some of the criteria that we have, we actually break that sort of quality of life down to look at, well, how well do you actually engage with people, how are there training programs provided for them, are there outreach programs provided for them, and there's 250 different criteria basically within the tool, but it's actually quite a simple tool to use, even though it might sound a bit cumbersome, it's not. One of the things I find is that whenever you start talking to people about sustainable development, they are automatically thinking that it in itself is a project, whereas it's not really. It's more a concept or a way of making better decisions about stuff that you already do, rather than a separate initiative by itself. And that's one of the things with the matrix that we're trying to get across to councils, that sustainable development, it's about integrating it through everything that you do, not having it as this sort of standalone added on thing.
Patricia, one of the things that we talked about is that you work through and with the environmental health organizations with for the councils. Tell us about that and how that came about.
Well, in Northern Ireland, the environmental health departments within the council, there are group environmental health organisations that there's 4 different ones, and Belfast has its own, and they try to coordinate a lot of the work that environmental health groups are focusing on in Northern Ireland. And the group environmental health organisations for the last few years are the ones that have actually been providing the funding for Sustainable Northern Ireland, really because historically sustainability has always sort of fallen under the environmental health remit, and they recognise the importance of getting the councils involved and how it would be important for their work. So that's really where they're coming from.
And that connection between health and sustainable development is very key.
It is absolutely vital. I mean, a healthy, active and fit society kind of from an economic point of view is incredibly important, but I don't think people necessarily get those links still.
Well, we're going to count on you to make those links for us.
I'm trying.
And it's very, I think, given the kind of vagueness of the national plan, it's very encouraging to see you giving some concrete reality to this. Patricia, thanks for talking to us today. Appreciate it.